One of your roles as a coach is to help your girls stay healthy and stay in the game. Welcome to Win From Within, our complete coaching guide for softball coaches. And in this video, we're going to give you some information and knowledge and strategies that you can apply to help your girls stay healthy and stay injury-free. My guess is if you're a softball coach, you're probably not a doctor. Luckily, Emily is a doctor of physical therapy. She works with softball athletes all the time and has developed some systems and protocols to help your girls stay injury-free. So we're going to dive into those right now. Emily's going to explain some concepts and give you some tips to help your girls stay healthy.
Before we dive into what you should do as a coach, there's a few things that you need to understand about movement. The first thing is the way we move represents our stiffness and weakness patterns. So our body instinctively will use the way it feels the most powerful. Another important thing to understand is what a movement dysfunction is, and it's a state in which your body cannot move optimally. Everybody has movement dysfunctions. It's whether or not they're aware of them and whether or not they're working on them. A movement dysfunction is a physical limitation, but it does not equal a bad technique. This is important because our approach with a bad technique versus a physical limitation to be successful in solving the problem, there's two very different approaches that have to be taken with these two problems. And this fourth point, how do you know if one of your girls has a movement dysfunction? Chronic ache, consistent problem performing a technique. She's had a non-contact injury, and this includes really significant non-contact injuries. I have torn my ACL 2.5 times non-contact, okay? Most of the labral tears that I see in the clinic are non-contact. Stress fractures are non-contact, and we're going to dive more into that non-contact, but they can be significant. Or visible irregularities in their movement. Or if you see a girl that struggles to do something that everybody else can easily do, that's a good indication that she has a movement dysfunction. So I'm going to dive into this non-contact injury and just give you a better example of what it is. So if you have two cars, so these markers are cars, I guess, and they collide into each other, that is a contact injury. If this is a car and the wheels are so out of alignment that as it's riding down the road, it causes other problems with the car, that is an example of a non-contact injury. You are so out of alignment in terms of how you're generating stability that something breaks down as a result. And like I said, these can be really significant injuries that oftentimes we have to get surgically fixed.
Yeah, so tying that together, so the non-contact injury is caused by a movement dysfunction. And so if you can identify the movement dysfunction early before there's pain, it can be resolved and fixed. But you have to fix the movement dysfunction, otherwise the injury is going to come up and happen again and again.
Yeah, and in a perfect world, non-contact injuries are totally preventable, like what Josh is saying. So if we as coaches know what to look for, then we can prevent a lot of these significant non-contact injuries that continue to have a lasting impact for forever, if you have to have them surgically fixed. So I'm going to give you some examples of other movement dysfunctions that I've seen, and these are all real life examples, okay? So this first one is, if you look at this girl squatting, she cannot get to full depth. And if you're a coach, this is what happened in this situation, is a coach comes to me and he says, I'm having a hard time getting this girl into her ready position. It doesn't matter how much you tell this girl to squat deeper, she cannot squat deeper because she has an ankle limitation that's limiting her squat technique. So until you address her physical limitation, she can't address her squat technique because she can't squat any deeper.
Yeah, she physically can't get into the ready position.
Yeah. So sometimes we see these visible irregularities and we think, oh my goodness, this girl is stiff or tight, so we need to stretch her. So a word of caution for you coaches about working with girls, especially through high school, is a lot of these girls actually aren't stiff. So if you look at these examples, all these girls gained motion without stretching. And you're probably like, how did this happen? Well, our bones have to be in a place where we can move them. So we have to be mechanically set up to move as our body is designed to move. These girls are so unstable that their bones can't stabilize in a good position to create movement. So their problem is a stability problem. And as we strengthened, we were able to stabilize better, to move better. So these girls gain their motion with 3 to 5 corrective exercises in one sitting.
Yeah,
and none of them involve stretching.
Just the exercises, no stretching.
So something to think about when you see these visible irregularities. Be cautious about aggressive stretching with this population of people. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of transition. So you kind of understand a little bit of a background, and we're going to transition into what do you as a coach do about it. So what can you do to keep your girls on the field, and probably more importantly, keep your girls healthy for the long term? Number one, address movement dysfunction. And this might require individual variations for different girls, but be aware of strength and weakness patterns and have a plan for addressing them. If you don't know how to address them, find somebody who can help you. Number two, help your girls prep and prepare their bodies for game time play. And this includes both before the game, so through appropriate warm-ups, which, by the way, our warm-ups should look different than a football team's warm-up, because what we're asking our body to do and what we need to prep our body to do is different than other sports. And so there should be sport-specific variations in your warm-up. And then also having arm care programs. And this is going to kind of feed into this next one, but strength programs. So counterbalance positioning with training that brings back symmetry. Our rotational sequencing in our sport, whether we're throwing, pitching, or hitting, that rotational sequencing is all the same. And we have to strengthen in a way that brings back symmetry. A lot of coaches tell me when they get into the season, we don't have time to do a strengthening program. And your strengthening program might look different in season than it does out of season, but I can't stress the importance of doing a strengthening program in season too. And the other question that I get a lot is, my girls are 9, should they be doing strengthening program? The answer to that is your girls are already doing a strengthening program. It's whether or not you're being intentional about what they're doing. So if they're going out and they're throwing 4 or 7 days a week, they're developing a strength pattern. If you wait until they're 16 or 18 to counterbalance this pattern, they will have early dysfunction and will fight that pattern for a really long time. And there's a good potential that it could bring injuries. So you need to have both an out-of-season strength program and an in-season strength program. All these are things that are included in the Win From Within coaching manual. Is appropriate warm-up guides, in-season and out-of-season strengthening programs, arm care programs. And then something else to think about is in January, what a lot of us do is we jump out on the field. We have a 2-hour practice and our girls start throwing, but having an appropriate throwing progression to help prep your girls' arms for throwing is super important. We don't play professional baseball, but in professional baseball, what we do know is that they rotate at over 7,000 degrees per second. Their shoulder does. Your 9-year-old girls might not be rotating that fast, but think about their stability structures. We need to make sure that we are strengthening appropriately so that we can stabilize our joint to limit these injuries, both in the short term and in the long term.
So this might sound like a lot of things to you, and if you're a coach who's already overwhelmed, I totally understand. I get it. Like we said at the beginning, you're probably not a doctor. This is probably a lot of stuff that you've never thought about, but it is so important that you are a resource to help your girls stay healthy, and then you have some kind of a foundational level of knowledge to facilitate that. If you don't have any of these things we've talked about, if you don't have an arm care program, if you don't have an in-season and out-of-season program to train and help your girls stay healthy, that's what we've included and built into our Win From Within program. So if that's something you don't want to spend all of your time creating or going to find, get our program. It's available right now. Enrollment closes soon, so jump in there and get it, and we hope to see you on the inside. Thanks.